The moment that broke my heart happened just seconds after my grandson graduated from high school. I stood there in the warm Ohio sunshine, clutching a small gift box and a worn envelope that I had protected for more than 13 years. Noah was laughing with his friends, hugging his father, and posing for pictures with his stepmother. I waited for him to look my way. He did. And then he looked right through me. Not a smile, not a hug, not even a simple "Hi, Grandma." I felt invisible. I was about to walk away when Noah's eyes landed on the silver key hanging from my gift box. His expression changed instantly. The color drained from his face, because he recognized that key. And in that moment, everything changed. Before I tell you what happened next, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever felt forgotten by someone you loved deeply? Let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe. I always enjoy seeing where you're watching from, so tell me your city, state, and the current time where you are. Now let me tell you how my grandson almost lost the truth about his mother forever. My name is Irene Reyes. I am 68 years old, a retired elementary school teacher from Columbus, Ohio. For most people at Noah's graduation, I was just an elderly woman standing quietly near the edge of the crowd. But for the first 13 years of his life, I was much more than that. I was the person who helped raise him. The story really began 13 years earlier on the worst day of my life. My daughter, Emily Reyes, was only 32 years old when cancer took her away from us. Even now, talking about her still hurts. Emily was my only child. She had the kindest heart of anyone I've ever known. She volunteered at animal shelters, remembered everyone's birthdays, and somehow managed to make every room feel warmer just by walking into it. When she married Michael Carter, I believed she had found the man she would grow old with. For a while she had. Then she got sick. The diagnosis came suddenly. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. By the time doctors found it, it had already spread. Emily fought harder than anyone I've ever seen. For 2 years, she endured surgeries, treatments, endless hospital visits, and unbearable pain. Yet every time I visited her, she asked about Noah first. Never herself. Always Noah. Did he eat dinner? How was school today? Did he finish his science project? That was the kind of mother she was. Noah was only 5 when she died. Too young to understand death. Old enough to feel abandoned by it. The morning after Emily's funeral, I arrived at Michael's house with a casserole and groceries. I wasn't sure what I would find. What I found broke my heart. Noah was sitting on the living room floor holding one of Emily's sweaters. He had wrapped it around himself like a blanket. His little face looked exhausted. His eyes were swollen from crying. When he saw me, he ran across the room and threw his arms around my waist. "Grandma," he whispered. Then he asked the question no child should ever have to ask. "When is Mommy coming home?" I still remember how difficult it was to answer. I knelt beside him. I held his tiny hands, and I told him that Mommy wasn't coming home, that she loved him very much, that she always would. He cried so hard he could barely breathe. I cried with him. That became our life for a long time, grieving together. Michael loved Noah, but he was grieving too. He spent longer hours at work. Sometimes he seemed emotionally lost. I understood. Losing a spouse can destroy a person. So without anyone formally asking, I stepped in. Every morning before school, I drove across town to help Noah get ready. I packed lunches, tied shoes, checked homework, made sure he brushed his teeth. After school, he often came directly to my house. We would sit at the kitchen table doing homework together. Then I'd cook dinner. Spaghetti was his favorite. Mac and cheese was a close second. Every Friday we watched movies. Every Sunday we baked cookies. Little traditions, little routines, little pieces of stability in a world that suddenly felt unsafe. The hardest moments always came at night, especially during that first year. Noah hated sleeping alone. He was terrified that if he fell asleep, someone else he loved would disappear. Many nights I would sit beside his bed until he drifted off. Sometimes he would wake up crying. Sometimes he would call for his mother. Sometimes he would simply ask me to stay. And I always stayed. One evening, about 6 months after Emily died, Noah climbed onto my couch holding a framed photograph. It was a picture of him sitting on Emily's lap. He stared at it for several minutes before speaking. "Grandma." "Yes, sweetheart." "Do you think Mommy can still see me?" My throat tightened. "I think so." He looked relieved. Then he smiled sadly. "Good, because I got an A in spelling today." I turned away for a second because I didn't want him to see me crying. That little boy missed his mother every single day, and I missed my daughter every single day. Together we helped each other survive. As the years passed, Noah slowly began healing. The sadness never disappeared completely, but life started moving forward again. He joined a youth soccer team. I attended every game. Rain or shine. Didn't matter. I was there. When he scored his first goal, he ran across the field screaming. Instead of running toward his father, he ran directly toward me. "Did you see that, Grandma?" I laughed. "I sure did." He wrapped his arms around me. At that moment, I felt Emily beside us somehow, watching, smiling, proud. As Noah got older, our bond only grew stronger. We spent summers fishing at a nearby lake. We visited museums. We went to baseball games. We built model airplanes together. When he struggled in math, I tutored him. When he got nervous before school presentations, I helped him practice. When he got the flu, I stayed up all night checking his temperature. I never viewed it as a sacrifice. I loved that boy with all my heart. One afternoon when Noah was around 10 years old, he said something I never forgot. We were sitting on the front porch eating ice cream. Completely out of nowhere, he looked at me and said, "You know what, Grandma?" "What?" He smiled. "You're kind of like my second mom." I laughed. "Only kind of." He grinned. "Okay, you're my second mom." That simple sentence meant more to me than he could ever know. Not because I wanted to replace Emily. No one ever could. But because I knew Noah felt safe with me, loved by me, protected by me. For years, I believed that connection was unbreakable. I believed nothing could come between us. Not distance, not time, not grief. I was wrong. Because while Noah and I were building those memories, another chapter of our family's story was quietly beginning. A chapter that would eventually change everything. A chapter that began the day Michael introduced us to a woman named Vanessa Carter. At first, she seemed perfectly charming. I had no idea she would one day become the reason my grandson looked through me as if I were a stranger. When Michael first introduced Vanessa Carter, I truly wanted to like her. For Noah's sake, I hoped she would become a positive influence in his life. He was 11 years old by then. He still missed his mother, though he didn't talk about it as often. The raw grief had softened into something quieter, something he carried inside himself. Michael invited me to dinner one Saturday evening. "I'd like you to meet someone," he told me over the phone. His voice sounded nervous. I knew immediately what that meant. When I arrived at the restaurant, Vanessa stood up and greeted me with a warm smile. She was attractive, polished, and confident. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled. Her clothes looked expensive without appearing flashy. Most importantly, she seemed kind, at least at first. "It's so nice to finally meet you, Irene," she said. Michael smiled. "I've told her how much you've done for Noah." Vanessa nodded. "And honestly, I think it's wonderful. He's lucky to have such a devoted grandmother." I remember feeling relieved. Maybe this was exactly what our family needed. Maybe Michael had found someone who could help rebuild what had been broken. For the first several months, everything appeared normal. Vanessa attended Noah's soccer games. She remembered birthdays. She bought thoughtful Christmas presents. She often complimented me in front of others. "Irene has been amazing. I could never replace everything she's done." Emily would be grateful. Looking back now, I realize she always knew exactly what people wanted to hear. About a year later, Michael and Vanessa got married. The wedding was small and beautiful. Noah even served as one of the groomsmen. I remember watching him in his suit, smiling beside his father. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful about our future. I thought we were becoming a stronger family. I had no idea things were already beginning to change. The changes started so gradually that I almost missed them. A missed phone call here, a canceled visit there. Small things, things easy to explain away. One Wednesday afternoon, I called Noah after school. No answer. That wasn't unusual. I left a voicemail. No call back. The next day I tried again. Still nothing. 3 days later, Noah finally answered. "Hey, Grandma." His tone sounded distracted. "I've been trying to reach you." "Oh." There was a pause. "Sorry." "Everything okay?" "Yeah." Another pause. "I'm kind of busy." Then he ended the call. I sat staring at my phone. The conversation had lasted less than a minute. That wasn't like Noah. Not at all. A few weeks later, I invited him to spend Saturday with me. We usually had at least one grandmother-grandson day every month. But this time, Michael called instead. "Sorry, Irene. We already have plans." "No problem." The next month, the same thing happened. And the month after that. Slowly, the traditions Noah and I had built over the years began disappearing. At first, I blamed normal teenage behavior. Kids grow up. They become independent. That's natural. But something felt different. One evening, I stopped by Michael's house to drop off a birthday gift. Vanessa answered the door. "Oh, Noah isn't home." "Really?" "He's with friends." Something about her smile seemed forced. Then I heard Noah laughing upstairs. I knew that laugh. I had heard it thousands of times. Vanessa noticed my expression. For a split second, something cold flashed across her face. Then the smile returned. He must have just gotten back. I left without saying anything, but uneasiness settled deep inside me. Not long afterward, I started noticing another pattern. Whenever Noah and I spoke, certain comments would appear. Little comments, tiny seeds planted in conversation. At first they seemed harmless. Then they became more frequent. One afternoon, I took Noah out for lunch. He was 14 by then, tall, athletic, and increasingly quiet. Halfway through the meal, he looked at me and said, "You worry too much, Grandma." I laughed. "That's my job." He shrugged. "Vanessa says you treat me like a little kid." The comment stung, not because of what Noah said, because it sounded exactly like something an adult had planted in his mind. A few weeks later, another comment appeared. "Vanessa says Dad feels guilty around you." That surprised me. "What do you mean?" He shrugged again. "Because you always remind him of Mom." I stared at him. I had never once tried to make Michael feel guilty. Not once. But I suddenly realized someone was creating a story about me. A story I didn't even know existed. As the years passed, the comments continued. Always subtle. Always framed as concern. Always making me seem like the problem. Vanessa thinks you don't trust Dad. Vanessa says you need to let me grow up. Vanessa says you don't like her. The truth was, I barely knew Vanessa anymore, because somehow she had become the gatekeeper of the family. Every invitation flowed through her. Every holiday plan, every family gathering, every conversation. And Michael allowed it. That was perhaps the most painful part. Michael wasn't a bad man. He loved Noah, but he hated conflict. He avoided confrontation whenever possible. If Vanessa wanted something, Michael usually gave in. It was easier, at least for him. For me, it was heartbreaking. By Noah's sophomore year of high school, our relationship had changed dramatically. The little boy who once called me his second mom was becoming a stranger. He still visited occasionally. He still said he loved me. But something had shifted. An invisible wall had appeared between us. One Christmas, I spent weeks choosing the perfect gifts. A new laptop backpack. A gift card to his favorite sporting goods store. Several books he had mentioned wanting. I carefully wrapped everything. When Noah opened them, he thanked me politely, but there was no excitement, no warmth, no connection. The entire exchange felt awkward, formal, almost like we were distant relatives instead of family. After everyone left that evening, I sat alone in my living room. I looked at the empty coffee cups and torn wrapping paper, and for the first time I allowed myself to wonder something terrifying. What if I was losing him? Not physically, emotionally. What if someone was rewriting our history while I wasn't looking? What if Noah no longer remembered all the years we had spent together? The bedtime stories, the soccer games, the school projects, the tears, the laughter, the promises. I wanted to believe that wasn't possible, but every year the distance grew. Every year Vanessa's influence became stronger, and every year Noah seemed to drift farther away. Then one evening something happened that convinced me my fears were real. I called Noah on his 17th birthday. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a loving message. Hours passed. No response. The next morning I finally received a text. Just 4 words. "Thanks. Been really busy." That was all. 4 words from the boy who once spent entire afternoons talking to me. I stared at the message for a long time, and deep inside I knew this wasn't simply adolescence. Something else was happening. Someone was standing between us. Someone was carefully, patiently reshaping how my grandson saw me. The worst part was that I couldn't prove it. Not yet. But as Noah's high school graduation approached, I began realizing something else. If I wanted to protect the future Emily had dreamed of for her son, I might soon have to act. Because hidden away in a safe place was a secret I had guarded for 13 years. A secret neither Noah nor Vanessa knew existed. And that secret would change everything. The secret began with a promise I made to my daughter during the final weeks of her life. There are conversations a mother never forgets, no matter how many years pass, no matter how much life changes. For me, that conversation happened in a quiet hospital room 13 years before Noah's graduation. Emily was already very weak by then. The treatments had stopped working. The doctors had done everything they could. We both knew time was running out, even though neither of us wanted to say it out loud. One evening after Noah had gone home with Michael, Emily asked me to stay behind. The room was dimly lit. Machines hummed softly beside her bed. Outside the window, snow drifted across the parking lot. She reached for my hand. Her fingers felt fragile. "I need to talk to you about Noah." My chest tightened immediately. Everything was always about Noah, even at the end. "Of course," I said. Emily took a slow breath. "There are things I need to put in place for him." I tried to smile. "You have plenty of time." She shook her head. We both knew I wasn't telling the truth. Then she surprised me. "Mom, I want you to promise me something. Anything. If I'm not here," her voice cracked, "I need you to protect Noah's future." I squeezed her hand. "You know I will." She looked directly into my eyes. "No matter who gets angry. No matter who pressures you. No matter what happens." At the time, I didn't fully understand why she was saying those words. Years later, I would. That night, Emily told me something I had never known. Several years earlier, shortly after Noah was born, she had quietly opened an educational investment account. She wasn't wealthy. Neither she nor Michael earned huge salaries, but she had been contributing small amounts every month. $20 here, $50 there, $100 when she could afford it. She called it Noah's Future Fund. "It's not much yet," she said, "but someday it could help him." I smiled through tears. That sounded exactly like Emily, always thinking ahead, always putting others first. Over the following weeks, we met with an attorney. Emily updated documents, organized records, prepared letters, created instructions. Most people assume dying patients focus on themselves. Emily focused entirely on her son. The attorney explained that if something happened to her, I would become the trustee responsible for protecting the account until Noah reached adulthood. Emily specifically requested it. Not Michael, not anyone else. Me. At first, I resisted. "I don't want Michael to think I don't trust him." Emily was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that stayed with me. "This isn't about trust. It's about certainty." She smiled weakly. "You never quit on people, Mom." I couldn't answer. I was already crying. 3 weeks later, Emily was gone. In the months that followed, grief consumed all of us. The fund became the last thing on my mind. But eventually, life settled into a routine. And one afternoon, while sorting paperwork, I found the account documents again. I remembered my promise. That was when I made a decision. Every month I would add something, anything, even if it was small. $20, $50, $100, whatever I could manage. At first, I wasn't sure how much difference it would make. I was a retired teacher. I wasn't rich, but I was determined. So I cut expenses. I skipped vacations. I delayed replacing my old car. I stopped eating at restaurants as often. Whenever I had extra money, some portion went into Noah's future. Years passed. The balance slowly grew, then grew some more. By the time Noah entered middle school, the account had become something meaningful. By high school, it had become substantial. But the money wasn't the most important part. The promise was. Every contribution reminded me of Emily. Every deposit felt like keeping a piece of her alive. Meanwhile, Noah continued drifting further away. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just little by little. Like a boat slowly moving away from shore. The older he became, the harder it was to reach him, and yet I never stopped preparing for the day he would need that gift. One autumn afternoon, about 2 years before graduation, I visited the attorney who had originally helped Emily. His name was Richard Bennett, a kind man in his 70s. He had known Emily personally. When he reviewed the account records, he smiled. "She'd be proud of you, Irene?" I looked down. "I hope so." Richard nodded. "Most people wouldn't have maintained this level of commitment for 13 years. I didn't feel heroic. I felt like a mother keeping a promise. Before I left, Richard handed me a new folder. Inside were updated documents, account summaries, and instructions for transferring control to Noah once he graduated. As I organized the papers later that evening, something unexpected caught my attention. There was another document attached, one I didn't recognize, a request form, submitted several years earlier. I frowned. The document showed an inquiry regarding a possible trustee modification. Someone had attempted to gather information about transferring authority over Noah's fund. The request had ultimately been denied. The attorney's office required Emily's original legal instructions to remain in effect. But what unsettled me wasn't the outcome. It was the name on the inquiry: Vanessa Carter. I stared at the paper for several minutes. Surely there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she had simply been asking questions. Still, something felt wrong. Very wrong. I scheduled a meeting with Richard the following week. When I showed him the document, his expression became serious. "I remember this." "You do?" He nodded. "She contacted our office multiple times." My stomach tightened. "Why?" "She claimed she was helping organize family finances." I remained silent. Richard continued. "When we explained that the trust instructions couldn't be changed, she seemed frustrated. The room suddenly felt colder." "Did Michael know?" Richard hesitated. "I can't answer that." Legally, he was right, but his hesitation told me enough. I drove home with a heavy feeling in my chest. For years, I had suspected Vanessa was slowly pushing me out of Noah's life. Now I wondered if something deeper was happening, something connected to the future Emily had worked so hard to protect. Still, I kept the information to myself. I didn't want assumptions. I wanted facts. And most importantly, I didn't want Noah caught in the middle. The following months passed quietly. Graduation season approached. College acceptance letters arrived. Social media filled with photographs of proud families. Noah had grown into a handsome young man, tall, confident, intelligent, just like his mother. I watched from a distance more often than I liked, sometimes through photos, sometimes through brief conversations, sometimes through silence. Then one afternoon, a plain white envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was a generic graduation announcement from Noah's high school. Not from Noah, not from Michael, not from the family, just a standard school mailing. I sat at my kitchen table holding it. For a long time I said nothing. Part of me wondered if Noah even wanted me there. Another part already knew the answer. I didn't care. I had missed too much already. Nothing would keep me away from that ceremony. Not pride, not disappointment, not hurt feelings. That night, I went upstairs and unlocked the small fireproof safe hidden inside my bedroom closet. Carefully, I removed a folder, then another, and finally, a small wooden box. Inside rested a silver key, the same key Emily once wore around her neck, the key that opened a private memory box she had created for Noah years ago. Letters, photographs, videos, messages, pieces of a mother's love preserved across time. I looked at the key resting in my palm. Then I looked at the account documents beside it. For 13 years, I had protected both. And soon, for the very first time, Noah would learn the truth. What I didn't know was that graduation day would reveal far more than I ever expected. Graduation day arrived on a bright Saturday morning in late May. I woke up before sunrise, not because I needed extra time, because I couldn't sleep. For weeks I had imagined this day, the day Noah would walk across a stage and receive his diploma, the day Emily should have been there, the day I had promised myself I would finally give Noah everything his mother had left behind. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and stared at the framed photograph that never left its place beside the window. It was my favorite picture of Emily. She was sitting on a picnic blanket holding 3-year-old Noah in her lap. Both of them were laughing, neither looking at the camera, just enjoying a moment. I touched the edge of the frame. "You should be here today," I whispered. My voice cracked. For a few moments I simply sat there, thinking about everything she had missed. His first day of kindergarten, his first baseball game, his middle school graduation, his driver's license, his first girlfriend. All the ordinary milestones mothers are supposed to witness. Then I stood up and got ready. I carefully chose a blue dress, the same shade Emily used to love. Whenever she saw me wearing blue, she would smile and say, "It brought out my eyes." Even after 13 years, little memories like that still lived inside me. Before leaving the house, I checked my purse one last time. The envelope was there. The legal documents, the account information, the letters. Everything. Beside it rested the small wooden box, and inside that box was the silver key. I took a deep breath. Then I drove to the high school. The parking lot was already crowded when I arrived. Families carried flowers. Balloons floated above clusters of excited relatives. People laughed and took photographs. The atmosphere felt joyful, hopeful. For a moment, I allowed myself to share in that happiness, because despite everything that had happened, I was proud of Noah. Very proud. He had worked hard. He had overcome challenges. He had become an impressive young man. Nothing could take that away. I found a seat several rows from the front. As families continued arriving, I noticed something that stung more than I expected. Nearly everyone seemed to be sitting together. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Entire families gathered around one graduate. Meanwhile, I sat alone, not because there were no available seats, because no one had saved one for me. I tried not to let it bother me. I reminded myself that I was there for Noah, not for recognition, not for attention, just for him. The ceremony began shortly afterward. One by one, students filed into the stadium. The crowd erupted into cheers. Phones appeared everywhere. Parents stood to wave. Grandparents wiped away tears. And then I saw him. Noah, my grandson, tall and confident in his graduation gown. For a brief moment, my heart overflowed with pride. He looked so much like Emily, the shape of his smile, the way he carried himself. Even from a distance, I could see traces of her. My eyes filled with tears. I wasn't sad, not then, just overwhelmed. As the ceremony continued, I watched every moment, every speech, every announcement, every recognition. And when Noah's name was finally called, I stood with everyone else. I clapped harder than anyone. I didn't care who noticed. I wanted him to know someone was celebrating him. Someone always would, even if he never realized it. After the diplomas were handed out, the stadium exploded into cheers. Graduates threw caps into the air. Families rushed forward. Photographs began immediately. The entire field transformed into a sea of hugs and laughter. I smiled as I searched for Noah. It didn't take long to find him. Michael reached him first. Father and son embraced. Cameras flashed. Then Vanessa stepped forward. She wrapped her arms around Noah dramatically. People around them smiled. Several relatives applauded. More pictures followed. Friends gathered. Teachers congratulated him. Classmates laughed and posed for photographs. I waited patiently. Surely he would notice me soon. Surely he would. I adjusted the gift box in my hands. The envelope felt heavier than usual. Minutes passed. Then something happened that I will never forget. Noah finally looked in my direction. For a second, our eyes met. I felt immediate relief. There you are, sweetheart, I thought. But instead of walking toward me, he simply nodded. A quick, distant nod. The kind of acknowledgement you might give a neighbor or a casual acquaintance. Then he turned away and continued talking to someone else. My smile disappeared. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe he was distracted. Maybe he hadn't fully seen me. Maybe. But deep down, I knew. He had seen me, and he had chosen not to come over. The realization landed like a punch to the chest. I stood there surrounded by hundreds of people and had never felt more alone. Nearby families were embracing. Grandparents were being pulled into photos. Children were introducing relatives to friends. Everyone seemed connected. Everyone except me. I tried to stay composed. I truly did, but the longer I watched, the harder it became. Eventually, I gathered enough courage to approach. Not because I wanted attention, because I wanted to congratulate my grandson. That was all. As I moved closer, I overheard snippets of conversation. "So proud of you. You earned this. College is going to be amazing." Normal graduation talk. Then I finally stood only a few feet away, close enough for Noah to see me clearly, close enough for him to say hello. Again he glanced my way. Again nothing happened. No smile, no hug, no invitation into the conversation. Nothing. The silence hurt more than any argument ever could, because arguments at least acknowledge your existence. This felt different. This felt like erasure. For a brief moment, I wondered whether the people around us noticed. Then I saw it in their eyes. Some did. A middle-aged woman standing nearby looked at me sympathetically. Another older couple exchanged an uncomfortable glance. One person even appeared embarrassed on my behalf. The pity nearly broke me. I looked away immediately. No one wants to become the sad story at a celebration. I swallowed hard and forced myself to remain calm. "Don't cry, Irene. Not here. Not today." I glanced toward the sky, Emily's favorite blue, and suddenly I found myself wondering something painful. If Emily could see this moment, what would she think? Would she recognize the distance between us? Would she understand how much had changed? Or would she be as shocked as I was? The crowd continued shifting around me. More photographs, more laughter, more congratulations. Meanwhile, I remained frozen in place, clutching the gift that represented 13 years of promises, 13 years of sacrifices, 13 years of protecting a future Noah didn't even know existed. Eventually, reality settled in. He wasn't coming. Not on his own. Not today. The realization hurt far more than I expected, because it forced me to confront a truth I had been avoiding for years. I hadn't just been losing Noah gradually, I had already lost him. Or at least the version of him who once ran into my arms after soccer games, the version who called me his second mom, the version who couldn't wait to tell me about his day. Standing there on that field, surrounded by celebration, I finally understood how far apart we had become. And then things got worse. Because just as I gathered my courage to hand Noah the gift anyway, Vanessa noticed me approaching. And the look that crossed her face told me she intended to stop me. The moment Vanessa saw me walking toward Noah, her entire posture changed. It happened so quickly most people probably didn't notice. 1 second she was smiling for photographs, the next she was watching me. Carefully. Almost nervously. I tightened my grip on the gift box and continued forward. I wasn't looking for a confrontation. I wasn't planning a speech. I simply wanted to congratulate my grandson and hand him the gift I had spent 13 years protecting. That was all. As I approached, another round of photographs was beginning. A professional photographer was organizing family members into rows. Parents in front. Graduates in the center. Everyone else behind. People shuffled into place. Michael stood beside Noah. Vanessa immediately moved to Noah's other side. Her hand rested possessively on his shoulder. I stopped several feet away. No one invited me into the picture. Not Noah. Not Michael. Not Vanessa. No one. The photographer looked around. Anybody else? Before I could answer, Vanessa smiled brightly. Nope. That's everyone. The words hit harder than they should have, because everyone knew they weren't true. I was standing right there, close enough to hear every word, close enough to see the photographer glance awkwardly in my direction. For a brief moment, I thought Michael might say something. He didn't. He looked away. The camera flashed. The family photo was taken, and I remained outside the frame, outside the memory, outside the story being presented to the world. I told myself not to cry, not here, not now. The ceremony was supposed to be about Noah. So I waited until the photographer finished. Then I stepped forward again. Noah. He turned. For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Maybe even discomfort. But before either of us could speak, Vanessa smoothly inserted herself into the conversation. Isn't today wonderful? She said. Her smile was flawless. Practiced. Artificial. I forced a polite nod. It certainly is. Then I looked directly at Noah. I'm very proud of you. Thanks. Just one word. Nothing more. No hug. No warmth. No emotion. The response felt rehearsed, like he was speaking to a distant acquaintance, not the woman who had helped raise him. I swallowed the hurt, then lifted the small gift box slightly. I brought something for you. Immediately, Vanessa laughed. Not loudly, just enough for nearby people to hear. Oh, Irene. Her tone dripped with false sweetness. You didn't have to do that. I frowned. I wanted to. She exchanged a glance with several relatives. Then came the comment that changed everything. That's very thoughtful, but Noah's college expenses are already completely handled. Something inside me froze. The statement wasn't just misleading. It was a lie. A very deliberate lie. I looked at her carefully. What do you mean? Vanessa smiled wider. Michael and I have worked incredibly hard to prepare for Noah's future. She squeezed Noah's shoulder. We've made sure everything is taken care of. Several people nearby nodded approvingly. Someone even commented on what wonderful parents they were. Meanwhile, I felt my stomach twist, because I knew exactly how much college planning Vanessa and Michael had actually done. Very little, at least compared to what she was implying. The educational fund existed because Emily had started it, and because I had spent 13 years adding to it. Not Vanessa, not Michael, certainly not both of them together. Yet she stood there accepting credit she hadn't earned, and somehow no one questioned it. I glanced at Noah. He appeared completely comfortable with the narrative, which meant he believed it. That realization hurt almost as much as being ignored. He genuinely thought Vanessa and Michael had secured his future. He had no idea what his mother had left behind, no idea who had protected it, no idea how many sacrifices had been made. I suddenly understood something terrifying. If I walked away without telling him the truth, he might never know. Not ever. Vanessa continued talking, sharing stories, accepting praise, positioning herself as the architect of Noah's success, the woman who had guided him, the woman who had sacrificed for him, the woman who had built his future. I listened quietly, and the more she spoke, the more certain I became. She wasn't just taking credit. She was actively replacing history, replacing Emily, replacing me, replacing anyone who complicated the image she wanted others to see. Eventually, I attempted once more to hand Noah the gift. "I'd still like you to have this." Before Noah could reach for it, Vanessa stepped forward again. Her smile never disappeared, but her eyes hardened. "You really don't need to make a scene." The words landed like a slap. Several conversations nearby stopped immediately. People were listening now, watching. My face grew warm. "A scene." Vanessa laughed lightly. "Oh, come on." She waved dismissively. "This is Noah's day." The implication was clear. I was somehow selfish for wanting to give my grandson a graduation present. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The silence became unbearable. I looked at Michael, waiting, hoping, expecting. Surely he would intervene. Surely he would tell Vanessa she was being unfair. Instead, he stared at the ground, avoiding eye contact. Just as he had done for years. That hurt almost more than anything else, because Michael knew what role I had played in Noah's life. He knew. He remembered the soccer games, the school pickups, the sleepless nights, the years after Emily died. Yet he said nothing. Absolutely nothing. The crowd gradually resumed talking, but the damage had already been done. I suddenly felt exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. The kind of exhaustion that comes from fighting a battle for years and realizing nobody else even sees it. I looked at Noah one last time. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. That somehow made it worse. He simply seemed detached, like a young man who genuinely believed the version of reality he'd been given. And in that moment, I realized something. Vanessa hadn't stolen Noah from me overnight. She had done it inch by inch, year after year, conversation after conversation, until eventually he no longer knew which memories belonged to him and which stories had been planted there. The gift box suddenly felt heavier, not because of what was inside, because of what it represented. Truth, history, Emily, everything Noah had been kept from. For a brief moment, I considered exposing everything right there, pulling out the documents, showing everyone, forcing the truth into the open. But something stopped me. Emily wouldn't have wanted that. Not at his graduation, not in front of hundreds of strangers. This day still belonged to Noah, even if it was breaking my heart. So I nodded slowly. "You're right." Vanessa looked surprised. I think she expected an argument. Instead, I stepped back. "I should go." Noah blinked. For the first time all afternoon, he seemed uncertain. "Grandma." The words sounded strange coming from him now, like something he hadn't used in a long time. I managed a small smile. "Congratulations, Noah." Then I turned and walked away. Each step felt heavier than the last. Behind me, the celebration continued. Laughter, photographs, music, applause. Life moved on. But inside, I felt shattered. By the time I reached the parking lot, tears blurred my vision. I hated crying in public, always had. So I kept walking, past rows of cars, past families loading balloons into trunks, past groups of graduates taking selfies. Eventually, I reached my vehicle. I placed the gift box carefully on the passenger seat. Then I sat behind the wheel. For several minutes, I couldn't move. I simply stared through the windshield, trying to compose myself, trying to decide what to do next. Maybe I should mail the gift later. Maybe I should ask the attorney to contact Noah directly. Maybe... My thoughts stopped abruptly because movement caught my eye. Someone was running across the parking lot. Fast. Very, very fast. At first, I couldn't tell who it was. Then sunlight reflected off his graduation gown, and I realized it was Noah. He wasn't looking at the crowd. He wasn't looking at his family. He was looking directly at me. Or more specifically, at the silver key hanging from the ribbon attached to the gift box. And the expression on his face told me he recognized it. For a moment, I thought I was imagining it. Noah was running toward me. Actually running. The same young man who had barely acknowledged me all afternoon was now weaving through rows of parked cars as if nothing else in the world mattered. I stepped out of the driver's seat. My heart pounded. The silver key dangled from the ribbon attached to the gift box. When Noah finally reached my car, he was breathing hard. Neither of us spoke immediately. His eyes never left the key. "Where did you get that?" His voice was barely above a whisper. I looked down at the key, then back at him. "You recognize it?" Noah swallowed. "I think I do." For the first time all day, I saw genuine emotion in his face. Confusion, shock, maybe even fear. He took a hesitant step closer. "My mom had a key like that." A chill traveled through me. After all these years, he remembered. Not everything had been erased. Not everything had been lost. I carefully lifted the small key. Sunlight reflected from its worn silver surface. The edges were slightly scratched. Years of use had left tiny marks across the metal. I knew every one of them, because I had seen Emily wear that key around her neck countless times. Noah stared at it, his eyes widening. "Oh my God." The words escaped before he could stop them. A memory had surfaced. I could see it happening. His expression changed. His gaze became distant, like he was suddenly somewhere else, somewhere years earlier. "When I was little," he said slowly, "Mom used to tell me there was a treasure box." I nodded. Noah looked stunned. "She called it my future box." My eyes filled with tears. "Yes." For several seconds, neither of us moved. The parking lot noise faded into the background. The graduation celebration suddenly felt far away, like it belonged to another world. Noah stared at the key again. "I thought I imagined that." "You didn't." His face tightened. "I remember asking her what was inside." I smiled sadly. "She told you it was a surprise." A faint laugh escaped him. A broken laugh. "Yeah." Then his smile disappeared. "She said I would get it someday." I nodded once more. The silence that followed felt heavy, not uncomfortable, just full of memories, full of things left unsaid. Finally, Noah looked at me directly. The question in his eyes was obvious. "What is this?" I took a slow breath. The answer would change everything, but I wasn't ready to explain everything in a parking lot. Not yet. Instead, I held out the gift box. "This belongs to you." Noah hesitated before accepting it. His fingers trembled slightly. Then he noticed the envelope tucked beneath it. "What's in there?" "Part of the truth." His eyebrows furrowed. "Part." I nodded. "The rest is waiting inside the box your mother left behind." Noah stared at me. The confusion on his face deepened. Behind him, distant cheers drifted across the parking lot. The celebration was still happening, but Noah no longer seemed interested in it. "What are you talking about?" Before I could answer, another voice suddenly interrupted. "Noah!" We both turned. My stomach dropped. Vanessa. She was hurrying across the parking lot. Michael followed several steps behind. The moment Vanessa saw the key in Noah's hand, her face changed. I had never seen that expression before. Pure panic. Not annoyance, not irritation. Fear. Real fear. It lasted only a second before she forced a smile. But I saw it, and judging by Noah's reaction, so did he. "There you are," Vanessa said breathlessly. She stopped beside him. "What are you doing out here?" Noah didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lifted the key slightly. Vanessa's eyes locked onto it. The color drained from her face. That tiny reaction told me more than words ever could. She knew exactly what it was. Noah noticed too. His gaze moved from the key to Vanessa, then back again. "Do you know what this is?" Vanessa recovered quickly. Too quickly. "It's just an old key." Noah didn't look convinced. Michael seemed confused. "What key?" Noah ignored him. His attention remained fixed on Vanessa. For the first time all afternoon, I saw something shifting inside him. A crack forming. A tiny crack in the version of reality he had been living with. Vanessa laughed nervously. "Come on, sweetheart." She reached toward his arm. "We have family pictures waiting." Noah stepped back. Not dramatically, just enough to avoid her touch. The movement was subtle, but Vanessa noticed. So did I. Something had changed. "What does Grandma mean by a treasure box?" Noah asked. Vanessa's smile vanished. Only for a moment. Then it returned. "I have no idea." The lie came too quickly, too smoothly, and Noah heard it. I could see it in his eyes. For the first time, he wasn't automatically accepting her answer. He was evaluating it, questioning it, thinking. Michael looked between all of us. "What treasure box?" Noah turned to me. "Grandma, what's going on?" The word hit me harder than I expected. Grandma. Not Irene. Not a polite acknowledgement. Grandma. The same name he had called me for nearly his entire childhood. A lump formed in my throat. I looked at the gift box in his hands, then at the young man standing before me, Emily's son, the little boy who once slept with her sweater because he missed her, the teenager who had been taught to doubt me, the young adult standing at the edge of discovering the truth. I knew there was no turning back now, so I spoke carefully. "Your mother left something for you." Noah's eyes widened. "What?" "A lot of things." Vanessa immediately interrupted. "Irene, this isn't the time." I ignored her. For 13 years, I had remained silent. I was done being interrupted. I was done allowing others to tell the story. "Noah deserves to know." Vanessa's expression hardened. "Know what?" I looked directly at her. Everything. The single word landed like a stone. Noah stared between us. His confusion was rapidly becoming suspicion. What does that mean? I opened my purse and carefully removed the envelope. The same envelope I had carried all day. The same envelope I had protected for years. I held it toward Noah. He accepted it cautiously. Inside were copies of documents, letters, records, proof. Not everything, but enough. Enough to begin. Enough to make him ask questions. Enough to make him look deeper. His fingers traced the edge of the envelope. What is this? Your mother's voice. The words escaped before I could stop them. Noah froze. For a moment he looked like a frightened little boy again. Mom's, his voice cracked. I nodded. Letters. His breathing became uneven. Letters. Yes. I swallowed hard. Letters she wrote for you. Noah stared at me as if the entire world had suddenly shifted beneath his feet. Then I added the sentence that changed everything. The box contains more than letters. What else? I looked directly into his eyes. The truth about your future. Complete silence followed. Even Vanessa stopped talking. The parking lot seemed frozen. Noah looked down at the envelope, then at the key, then back at me. Finally, he asked the question I had been waiting 13 years to hear. Can you show me? And from the corner of my eye, I saw Vanessa Carter turn pale, because she knew exactly what would happen once Noah opened that box. Can you show me? Noah's question hung in the air. For a moment, nobody moved. Vanessa looked as if she wanted to interrupt again, but something in Noah's expression stopped her. This wasn't the same young man who had ignored me on the graduation field an hour earlier. Something had shifted. A door had opened, and now he needed answers. I looked at him carefully. Yes. Then I glanced toward the crowd gathered near the stadium. We should talk somewhere private. Noah nodded immediately. I'll go with you. Vanessa stepped forward. That's not necessary. Her voice sounded sharper than before. Too sharp. Noah turned toward her. It is to me. The response caught her off guard. For years, she had probably been accustomed to Noah accepting her guidance without question. Today was different. Today he was questioning everything. Michael rubbed the back of his neck nervously. Maybe we should all talk together. I shook my head. No, everyone looked at me, especially Michael. I rarely spoke that firmly. This conversation begins with Noah. Only Noah. No lawyers. No explanations. No interruptions. Just Noah and the truth. For a long second, nobody argued. Then Noah opened the passenger door of my car. I want to hear it. So we left. The drive took only 15 minutes. Neither of us spoke much. The envelope rested on Noah's lap. The silver key remained in his hand. He stared at it almost the entire trip, as though he was trying to unlock old memories hidden inside his mind. Eventually, he broke the silence. Why didn't anyone tell me about this? The question carried years of confusion behind it. I kept my eyes on the road. That's a complicated answer. Noah looked out the window. I think I've earned the complicated answer. I couldn't argue with that. When we arrived at my house, I led him inside. The familiar scent of cinnamon and coffee lingered in the air. For a brief moment, I wondered if Noah remembered all the afternoons he had spent there growing up. The homework sessions, the movie nights, the Christmas cookies. Judging by the way his eyes moved around the room, I think he did. I guided him to the dining room table. Then I disappeared upstairs. A minute later, I returned carrying a medium-sized wooden chest. The chest wasn't fancy, just polished oak with brass corners, but Noah immediately recognized it. His face went pale. "Oh my God." I set it gently on the table. "This is the box your mother told you about." His breathing became shallow. "I thought it wasn't real." "It was always real." For several moments he simply stared. Then he looked down at the silver key, the same key Emily had once worn around her neck. Slowly, carefully, Noah inserted it into the lock. The click echoed through the room. I don't think either of us breathed. Then he lifted the lid. Inside lay 13 years of love, photographs, letters, birthday cards, USB drives, journal entries, small keepsakes, a pressed flower, a hospital bracelet, even a tiny stuffed dinosaur Noah had adored as a child. His hand trembled as he picked it up. "I remember this." A tear rolled down his cheek. "My mom used to carry it everywhere." I nodded. "She saved everything." He swallowed hard. Then he noticed the stack of sealed envelopes. Each one had a different age written across the front. For Noah, age 10. For Noah, age 13. For Noah, age 16. For Noah, high school graduation. His breath caught. "She wrote all these?" "Yes." Noah carefully lifted the graduation letter. The envelope had yellowed slightly with age. Emily had written it 13 years earlier, knowing she would never see this day herself, knowing she would never hand it to him. Noah opened it. His eyes moved across the page. Then suddenly he stopped. His lips trembled. Without warning, tears began falling. Not quiet tears, not controlled tears, the kind of tears that come from years of buried grief. I remained silent. This moment belonged to him. Several minutes passed before he finally spoke. "She knew." His voice broke. "Knew what?" He looked up. "She knew she'd miss everything." I closed my eyes briefly. "Yes." He stared back at the letter, then began reading aloud. "Noah, if you're reading this, it means you graduated high school. I wish more than anything that I could be there. If I can't, I want you to know that every dream I ever had was wrapped around your future." His voice cracked again. Tears splashed onto the page. Then he continued, "You may hear many opinions about people after I'm gone, but there is one thing I need you to remember. If there is anyone in this world I trust completely with your future, it is your grandmother, Irene." Noah stopped reading. His entire body froze. Slowly he looked at me. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the confusion, the guilt, the realization. "What does she mean by that?" I took a deep breath. Then I reached into the box and removed a second folder. Inside were legal documents, bank records, investment statements, everything. I placed them in front of him. Noah frowned. "What is this?" "The future fund your mother started." His eyebrows lifted. "What future fund?" I stared at him. "You truly don't know." It wasn't a question. It was a realization. Noah shook his head. "No." My heart sank. For years I had suspected he didn't know. Now I had confirmation. Not only had nobody told him, someone had actively hidden it. I opened the folder. The first page displayed the original account information. Emily's signature appeared clearly at the bottom. Noah stared. "Mom opened this." "Yes." Before she died. Yes. He continued flipping pages. Then his eyes widened. The balance sheet appeared. Years of deposits, years of growth, years of contributions. The account had become substantial, more than enough to help pay for college. Noah looked stunned. How long has this existed? 13 years. His head snapped upward. 13 years. I nodded. Your mother started it. And then, I hesitated. Only briefly. Then I continued it. Silence. Absolute silence. Noah stared at the statements. Page after page. Year after year. My deposits, my contributions, my signatures. His face slowly lost color. You've been putting money into this all these years. Yes. He shook his head. I don't understand. Then came the question I had dreaded. Why didn't anyone tell me? I reached into the folder one final time. This time I removed several copies of correspondence from attorney Richard Bennett's office. Documents I had hoped Noah would never need to see, but now he deserved the truth. I placed them on the table. What are these? I met his eyes. Evidence. Noah began reading. At first confusion, then surprise, then disbelief. Finally anger. Real anger. The letters showed inquiries, requests, attempts to gain authority over the fund. One name appeared repeatedly. Vanessa Carter. Noah read every page. His hands tightened into fists. This can't be real. It is. His breathing grew heavier. One document in particular seemed to hit him hardest. The record showed that Vanessa had attempted to obtain information about transferring control of the fund years earlier, without Noah's knowledge, without my permission, without legal authority. Noah stared at the page, then looked at me. When did you find out? A few years ago. And you never told me. I didn't want to destroy your relationship with your family without proof. His jaw tightened. But you had proof. I had suspicion. I pointed to the documents. Now I have proof. Noah leaned back in his chair. The room felt impossibly quiet. Then he whispered something that broke my heart. She always told me you didn't want to help me pay for college. I closed my eyes. There it was. The lie. Finally spoken aloud. The lie that explained everything. Noah looked down at the statements again. At 13 years of evidence. At 13 years of sacrifice. At 13 years of love. And for the first time he began seeing the truth. Not the story he had been told, the truth. The room remained silent for a long time. Noah sat motionless at my dining room table. The graduation letter lay open in front of him. The financial documents were spread across the polished wood surface. But his attention wasn't on the numbers anymore. It was on his mother's words. I could see it in his eyes. The money mattered. The deception mattered. But neither of those things hurt him as deeply as the realization that his mother had left behind a message he had never received. A message that should have reached him years ago. A message that had been waiting for him all this time. Noah slowly picked up the letter again. His hands were trembling. Then he continued reading. If you're reading this, sweetheart, it means you've become a young man. His voice cracked. He stopped to wipe his eyes, then continued. There are things I wish I could teach you myself. How to drive, how to handle heartbreak, how to become a good husband someday. But life doesn't always give us the time we want. A tear rolled down his cheek. I felt my own eyes filling. Even after 13 years, hearing Emily's words still affected me. Noah kept reading. When life becomes confusing, remember something important. The people who truly love you will never need to erase someone else in order to earn your love. His breathing hitched. The sentence landed heavily, because suddenly it wasn't just advice, it was a mirror, a reflection of everything that had happened. Noah stared at those words for several seconds. Then he whispered them again. The people who truly love you will never need to erase someone else. His voice faded. I didn't interrupt. He needed to connect the pieces himself. Eventually, he looked up. Grandma. The title sounded natural now, like something returning home. Yes. His eyes were red. When did everything change? The question carried years of pain, years of confusion, years of manipulation. I answered honestly, I don't know exactly. He looked down. I think I do. That surprised me. Noah stared at the table. Then slowly he began talking. Not as a graduate, not as an adult, as the little boy who had been hurting for years. It started after Dad married Vanessa. I remained silent, listening. At first she was nice. He laughed bitterly. Really nice. His gaze drifted toward the window. Then little things started happening. What kind of things? Noah took a deep breath. She always had explanations. I frowned. Explanations. He nodded. If you missed a birthday dinner, she'd explain why. My stomach tightened. If you didn't answer a text, she'd explain why. A familiar ache spread through my chest. If a holiday visit got canceled, she'd explain why. Now I understood, not just interference. Narrative control, carefully controlling how every situation appeared. Noah continued. At first I believed her. His voice was full of regret. Why wouldn't I? I couldn't blame him. He had been a child. Children trust the adults raising them. That's what makes manipulation so powerful. Noah rubbed his eyes. Then came the confession that broke my heart. She told me you didn't approve of Dad. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course she had. She said you blamed him for Mom's death. I shook my head immediately. Never. I know that now. His voice cracked. But I didn't then. The guilt on his face was painful to watch. Noah swallowed hard. She said you thought I belonged with you instead of Dad. That's not true either. I know. Another tear slid down his cheek. She said you were angry because you weren't in control anymore. I felt physically ill hearing it. Years of poison dripped into his ears one drop at a time. Not enough to trigger alarm, just enough to slowly reshape reality. Noah stared at his mother's letter. Then he whispered something that nearly shattered me. I started believing you didn't want me. The words struck harder than anything else. Not because they were true, because they were the exact opposite. Every sacrifice, every deposit, every prayer, every sleepless night, everything I had done came from love, and somehow he had been convinced otherwise. I reached across the table and gently touched his hand. Noah. He looked at me. There was never a day I didn't want you. His lower lip trembled. There were birthdays you didn't come. I know. There were Christmases where you barely called. I know. There were months where I didn't hear from you. Tears filled my eyes. And I still loved you every single day. Noah broke. Completely. The dam finally collapsed. He lowered his head into his hands and sobbed. Not quietly, not politely. Years of pain poured out at once. I moved beside him. The same way I had when he was 5 years old. The same way I had after Emily died. I wrapped my arms around him, and for the first time in years, he didn't pull away. He leaned into the embrace, like a lost child finding something familiar. We stayed like that for several minutes. Eventually, his crying eased. Not completely, just enough for him to breathe again. Then he looked back at the letter. There was more. I nodded. Read it. His eyes scanned the page. A fresh wave of tears appeared almost immediately. If you're ever told that your grandmother doesn't care about you, don't believe it. Noah froze. Completely. Then continued reading. Your grandmother loves you almost as much as I do. If I cannot be there to protect you, she will. His voice collapsed. The room became silent. Again. This time the silence felt different. Not confusion, not uncertainty. Recognition. Truth finally finding its place. Noah stared at the paper. Then he laughed once. A sad, broken laugh. She knew. I nodded. Emily had known. Not everything, but enough. Enough to understand that Noah might someday need guidance after she was gone. Enough to know who she trusted. Enough to leave instructions. Noah shook his head slowly. I treated you terribly today. The apology came quietly, without excuses, without defenses, just honesty. I smiled softly. You were hurt too. No. He looked directly at me. I ignored you. I didn't answer, because he was right. His eyes filled again. You were standing there all alone. The memory clearly haunted him now. I saw you. That confession hurt, because it confirmed what I had already suspected. He had seen me. He had simply chosen not to come over. Not out of cruelty, out of conditioning, out of years of emotional manipulation. Noah closed his eyes. I'm so sorry. I squeezed his shoulder. We still have time. His gaze shifted toward the documents again, toward Vanessa's name, toward the evidence, toward the truth. And suddenly his expression changed. The sadness remained, but something else appeared alongside it. Determination, anger, resolve. He sat up straighter. What happens now? I knew exactly what he meant. Not the fund, not the letters. Vanessa, the lies, the missing years, the betrayal. I answered carefully. That depends on you. Noah looked toward the stack of evidence, then toward the graduation letter, then back at me. For several moments he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded different, older, stronger, certain. I need answers. I nodded. You deserve them. No. His jaw tightened. I deserve the truth. The room grew quiet once more. Then Noah carefully folded his mother's letter and slipped it back into its envelope. He placed the key in his pocket, gathered the documents, and stood. The movement surprised me. Where are you going? His eyes locked onto mine. Back when he was little, Emily used to get the exact same expression whenever someone lied to her, the exact same look. I saw it now, for the first time. I'm going back. My heart skipped. Back where? Noah picked up the folder containing every piece of evidence. Then he answered. To the graduation party. His voice was calm, dangerously calm. I want Vanessa to explain everything. The drive back to the graduation party felt completely different from the drive to my house. Earlier, Noah had been confused. Now he was focused, silent, determined. The folder containing the documents rested on the seat beside him. His mother's graduation letter remained tucked safely inside his jacket, and the silver key never left his hand. Several times I glanced toward him, each time he was staring out the window, thinking, processing, grieving, growing. All at once, neither of us spoke much. There wasn't much left to say. The evidence spoke for itself. The truth spoke for itself. Now it was time for answers. The graduation celebration was being held at a local country club just outside Columbus. When we arrived, the parking lot was still packed. Music drifted from the building. Laughter echoed through the open doors. Families were celebrating, taking photographs, sharing stories, living inside one of the happiest days of their lives. Yet as Noah stepped out of the car, he looked like a young man heading into battle. I followed a few steps behind. Not because I wanted to fight, because I wanted him to know he wasn't alone. The moment we entered the reception hall, several relatives noticed us. Conversation slowed. People glanced toward Noah, then toward me, wordlessly sensing something had changed. Across the room, Vanessa was standing beside Michael talking to several family friends. The second she saw Noah, she smiled. The second she saw me standing beside him, her smile disappeared. I watched the realization hit her. She knew. Maybe not every detail, but enough. Enough to understand that Noah had learned something. Enough to recognize the danger. Noah. Her voice sounded forced, overly cheerful. She immediately walked toward us. Michael followed behind. "Where have you been?" she asked. Noah didn't answer. Instead, he placed the folder on a nearby table. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Several conversations stopped completely. Vanessa's eyes dropped to the folder, then quickly returned to Noah. "What's wrong?" Still no answer. For the first time since I had known her, Vanessa looked nervous. Genuinely nervous. Noah finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost frighteningly calm. "I have a question." Vanessa laughed lightly. "Okay. Why did you tell me my grandmother didn't want to help me?" The room instantly became silent. Not completely, but close. Nearby guests stopped pretending not to listen. Vanessa blinked. Just once. Then she smiled. "I don't know what you're talking about." A lie. Immediate. Automatic. Noah nodded slowly, as if he had expected it. Then he opened the folder. Several documents slid onto the table. Bank statements, legal correspondence, copies of inquiries, evidence. Vanessa's face lost color. Michael looked confused. "What is all this?" Noah ignored him. His attention remained fixed on Vanessa. "My mother started a college fund before she died." Silence. Vanessa didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. Noah continued. "My grandmother spent 13 years adding to it." Still silence. The entire room seemed frozen. Then Noah asked another question. "Did you know about it?" Vanessa crossed her arms. "I might have heard something years ago." The answer was carefully crafted. Too carefully. Noah immediately noticed. "So that's a yes." "It's not that simple." "No." His voice sharpened slightly. "Then explain the letters." He pulled out copies of Attorney Bennett's records, the inquiries bearing Vanessa's name, the requests for information, the attempts to gain authority. Several guests leaned closer. Nobody was pretending anymore. Everybody was listening. Vanessa glanced toward Michael, searching for help. He looked stunned, completely stunned. "I never saw these before," he said quietly. Vanessa immediately turned toward him. "Michael." "No." For the first time all day, Michael interrupted someone. His face had changed. Years of avoidance suddenly cracking. "You contacted the attorney." Vanessa hesitated. A fatal mistake. The hesitation answered the question. Michael stared at her. "You told me there was no fund." The words hit the room like an explosion. Noah's head snapped toward his father. "What?" Michael looked sick, truly sick. Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it again. Michael continued speaking, slowly, painfully, as if he was finally admitting things he had hidden from himself. "Years ago, she mentioned hearing rumors about an account." He looked toward Noah. "I asked about it." "And?" Michael swallowed hard. "She told me it didn't exist." The silence became unbearable. Noah stared at Vanessa. His expression shifted from anger to disbelief. "You lied to Dad too." Vanessa immediately shook her head. "It wasn't like that." Then came the excuses, the justifications, the rationalizations, all the things people say when truth corners them. "I was trying to protect the family. I didn't think it mattered. I didn't want conflict. I thought, oh, stop." Noah's voice cut through the room. Everyone fell silent, even Vanessa. For a moment, I saw Emily in him. Not physically, emotionally, the same refusal to tolerate dishonesty, the same fierce sense of justice. Noah looked directly at Vanessa. "You told me Grandma didn't care." No answer. "You told me she didn't want to help pay for college." No answer. "You told me she was controlling." Still no answer. "You told me she blamed Dad." Vanessa looked away, and that told everyone everything. Noah laughed once, a hollow, painful laugh. Then he reached into his jacket, carefully, slowly, and removed Emily's graduation letter. The room became even quieter, if that was possible. "This is from my mom." Vanessa visibly flinched. Noah unfolded the letter, then read aloud. "If there is anyone in this world I trust completely with your future, it is your grandmother, Irene." The words echoed through the room. Several people lowered their eyes. Others stared at me. Some appeared emotional. A few looked angry. At Vanessa. At the situation. At the years that had been stolen. Noah folded the letter, then looked directly at his father. The next question was somehow even harder. "Dad." Michael lifted his head. "When did you know things weren't right?" The pain on Michael's face was immediate, raw, visible, because unlike Vanessa, he couldn't lie anymore. Not after seeing the evidence, not after hearing Emily's words, not after watching his son break apart. Michael sat down heavily, looking older than I had ever seen him. Then he answered, "A long time ago." The confession stunned the room. Noah froze. "What?" Michael stared at the floor. "There were things that didn't make sense." His voice trembled. "Missing messages. Canceled visits. Arguments." He closed his eyes. "I should have stopped it." Noah looked devastated. "Then why didn't you?" Michael's answer came almost immediately, because he had probably rehearsed it in his head for years. "I was afraid." The honesty shocked everyone, including Vanessa. Michael looked toward Noah, then toward me. "I had already lost Emily." Tears appeared in his eyes. I didn't want another marriage to fail." The room remained silent. Nobody interrupted. Nobody judged. Because everyone could see the tragedy. Michael hadn't acted out of malice. He had acted out of weakness. And weakness had consequences. Very painful consequences. Noah slowly shook his head, years of confusion finally settling into place. Everything made sense now. The distance, the lies, the manipulation, the silence, the missing years. Vanessa looked around the room, desperate, searching for support, finding none. For the first time since I had known her, she stood completely alone. The image she had spent years building was collapsing, and she knew it. Finally, Noah took a deep breath, then looked directly at her. His voice was calm, steady, certain. "You didn't just lie about money." He held up the letter. "You stole years I could have spent with my grandmother." The words landed harder than any accusation, because they were true, and there was no defense against the truth. The room remained silent after Noah's words. "You didn't just lie about money." He looked directly at Vanessa. "You stole years I could have spent with my grandmother." No one moved. No one spoke. Because there was nothing left to say. The truth had finally arrived, and the truth rarely needs help defending itself. Vanessa stood frozen near the table. For years she had controlled the narrative. For years she had decided which version of events Noah would hear. For years she had managed appearances. Now appearances no longer mattered. Reality had caught up. I looked around the room. Family members avoided eye contact. Some appeared uncomfortable. Others looked openly disappointed. A few seemed angry, but the person who interested me most wasn't Vanessa. It was Noah. Because for the first time all day he looked free, heartbroken, confused, emotional, but free. The burden of uncertainty had disappeared. The questions that had haunted him for years finally had answers. Painful answers, but answers nonetheless. Vanessa eventually attempted one final defense. "I was trying to do what I thought was best." The statement sounded weak. Even she seemed to know it. Noah slowly shook his head. "No." His voice remained calm. "You were trying to control the story." Vanessa looked away. That was answer enough. Michael sat quietly for several moments before standing. He approached me slowly, almost cautiously, as though he wasn't sure he deserved to. Maybe he didn't. Maybe none of us fully deserved forgiveness. But that didn't stop him from trying. "Irene." I looked up. His eyes were filled with regret. Real regret. Not excuses, not explanations. Regret. "I'm sorry." The words were simple, yet I could tell they had taken years to reach the surface. "I should have protected him." His voice cracked. "And I should have protected your relationship with him." I studied his face. The truth was complicated. Michael had failed us. There was no denying that. But unlike Vanessa, he wasn't pretending otherwise. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was finally taking responsibility. "I know," I said quietly. Tears filled his eyes. Then something surprising happened. Noah stepped forward. Not toward Vanessa. Not toward the guests. Toward me. The room seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, he stopped directly in front of me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His eyes were red from crying. Mine probably were too. Then he said the words I never expected to hear that day. "I'm sorry, Grandma. My heart broke all over again. Not from pain, from relief. Pure relief. He said, "Grandma," not out of habit, not out of politeness, out of love, out of recognition, out of understanding. The title felt like a bridge being rebuilt, one board at a time. Noah swallowed hard. "I saw you standing there today." I nodded. "I know." His voice trembled. "And I walked away." I remained silent, not because I disagreed, because he needed to say it. He looked down briefly, then back up. "I can't change that." "No." "I can't get back the years." "No." Tears slid down his face again. "But I want to make sure I don't lose any more." That was when I stopped trying to be strong. That was when my own tears finally escaped. Years of worry, years of loneliness, years of wondering whether I had lost him forever. All of it came rushing out. Before I could say anything, Noah wrapped his arms around me. And suddenly, I wasn't standing in a country club surrounded by graduation guests. I was remembering a little boy, a 5-year-old child who used to run into my arms after school, a child who trusted me completely, a child who loved me without conditions. For the first time in years, that child felt close again. I hugged him tightly. Neither of us seemed interested in letting go. Several people quietly wiped tears from their eyes. I noticed Michael doing the same. Eventually, Noah stepped back. Then, to my complete surprise, he turned toward the room, toward everyone. Friends, family, teachers, guests. All of them. He placed one arm around my shoulders, then said something I will never forget. "This is my grandmother." The room became silent once more, not because of tension, because of emotion. Noah smiled through tears. "The woman who helped raise me." I felt my breath catch. "The woman who protected my future." Another pause. "The woman I should have thanked a long time ago." Several people applauded softly. Then more joined. Soon the room was filled with applause. Not for me, not for Noah, for the truth, for healing, for something finally being made right. A little later, after many guests had gone home, Noah and I sat together in a quiet corner of the reception hall. The chaos of the day had begun fading. For the first time, we were able to simply talk, really talk, about Emily, about childhood memories, about all the years in between. Then Noah remembered something. "The box." I smiled. "The box." His eyes brightened slightly. "Was that everything?" I laughed softly. "No." That got his attention immediately. "What do you mean?" There was one more surprise. Noah leaned forward. I reached into my purse and removed another sealed envelope. One I had intentionally saved until now. His curiosity instantly returned. "What's that?" I handed it to him. He carefully opened it. Several pages slid into his hands. At first he frowned. Then his eyes widened, then widened even further. "What is this?" I smiled. "A gift from your mother." He stared at the paperwork. Property records, trust documents, legal filings, all signed years ago. His voice barely worked. "Wait." I nodded. "Your mother purchased a small cottage near Lake Logan before she became ill." Noah looked stunned. "The lake—" "Yes." His eyes moved rapidly across the pages. "The cottage belongs to me. Technically, it belongs to a trust." I smiled. "And now that you've graduated, that trust belongs to you." For several seconds, Noah simply stared. speechless. The cottage wasn't worth millions. That wasn't the point. The point was what it represented. Another piece of Emily, another piece of love preserved across time. Another reminder that she had never stopped thinking about him. Noah shook his head in disbelief. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." A long silence followed, comfortable this time. Healing. Then Noah looked at me and smiled. A genuine smile. The first completely genuine smile I had seen from him in years. "I do know one thing." "What?" He folded the papers carefully. "I'm spending this summer with you." I laughed. "Are you?" "Absolutely." He grinned. "We have 13 years of catching up to do." The words filled my heart with joy, and in that moment I realized something. Vanessa had taken years from us. That was true. Michael's silence had caused damage. That was also true. But neither of those truths would define the rest of our story, because the future was still unwritten. And now, finally, Noah and I would write it together. That summer, we spent weekends at the cottage by the lake. We watched Emily's recorded messages, read her journals, looked through photographs, shared stories, laughed, cried, remembered. And slowly the missing pieces of our family began finding their way home. Because family isn't the person standing closest to you in a photograph. It isn't the person who tells the loudest story, and it isn't the person who claims the most credit. Family is the person who stays, the person who protects you when nobody is watching, the person who keeps loving you even when you're too hurt to recognize it. And after everything that happened, Noah finally understood that. So did I. Sometimes the greatest acts of love happen quietly. They don't make headlines. They don't attract attention. And often they go unnoticed for years. A parent, grandparent, or loved one may spend decades sacrificing for someone without ever asking for recognition. Yet those sacrifices still matter. This story reminds us that truth can be delayed, but it rarely disappears forever. People may influence opinions, manipulate relationships, or rewrite history for a time, but genuine love leaves evidence behind. It lives in actions, consistency, sacrifice, and loyalty. Another important lesson is that children and young adults often see the world through the information they are given. When they are misled, they may unintentionally hurt the very people who love them most. That is why honesty inside a family is so important. Forgiveness is not about pretending the pain never happened. It is about choosing not to let pain control the future. Noah could not recover the years he lost, but he could decide what kind of relationship he wanted moving forward. Have you ever been misunderstood by someone you deeply loved? Or have you ever discovered a family truth years later that changed everything? Share your experience in the comments. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And before you go, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is in your city right now. I'd love to read your comments and hear your story.